Oh, hello, Sydney. Remember me? Yeah, your old friend Ghostface. I just want to play a game, just like I always have. A quick one. I promise it'll be short. Who's your favorite superhero, Sydney? Oh, Spider-Man. I like Spider-Man too. He's my favorite as well. Who's your favorite actor to play Spider-Man? What? Are you kidding me? Everyone knows the right answer is Andrew Garfield. He's the best one to play the role. Yes, I liked him before No Way Home. What do you think I am, some kind of bandwagon fan? Why are you asking me how an opinion can be wrong? What do I look like to you, an English teacher? I just know it is. And what do you mean I sound nothing like Ghostface? I'm doing my best here. I'm no Billy or Stu, but I'm trying. God damn it, well screw you too! Women. What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to another video on the channel. And today, if you haven't already guessed, we're going to be ranking all five Scream movies from worst to best. Before I go any further, this video will contain spoilers for every single Scream movie, including the new one. But I imagine if you're watching this video, you've at the very least seen the first four. But disclaimer anyway, because I know someone will complain that I'm spoiling a 25, how old is the first grade? Whatever, I know someone will complain. So yeah, this is your spoiler warning. If you're still here, thank you. And let's get this show on the road. Now, I don't really consider myself like a Scream fanatic. I'm not like obsessed with the franchise. I mean, I like it enough to own a mask, but still. I do definitely, obviously, like some movies more than others. But I only really love like a couple. I don't hate any of the movies, but I don't love all of them. So just keep that in mind while I'm going through my list. I mean, it may seem like I'm like shitting on the bottom three movies, but I'm really not. I do like all these movies to varying degrees. With that being said, let's get started.
It was a simple game, Cotton. You should have told me where Sydney was. Now, you lose.
Alright, so coming in at last place is going to be Scream 3. I feel like this is most people's least favorite Scream movie. Again, I don't hate it. I do think it's a fine movie. To me, there's just too much about it that is kind of lackluster. I think the opening scene is the weakest of the franchise, and actually the violence as a whole, I would say, is the weakest of the franchise in this movie too. Now, I know the culture climate was different back when this movie was coming out, so as a result they couldn't really make this entry as bloody or as gory as the other films in this series. And I mean, yeah, I get it, but it's still something I have to knock the movie for it. I mean, people are getting stabbed left and right, and like there's like barely any blood. I forget his name, but the like security guy, one of the guys gets like his throat slit or something, and there's like no blood. I guess I sound like a sadist complaining about that, but it is something to keep in mind when watching a horror slasher movie, is that the blood is half the fun, you know? I do actually like the killer reveal in this movie. I know a lot of people didn't, but I was satisfied with the killer reveal. I really liked it. And I do like this movie more, like I guess in theory is the right word, because originally there was supposed to be two killers, and the actress who is playing the woman who is playing Sidney Prescott in this movie was supposed to be the second killer. I forget her name, but she was supposed to be the second killer. They kind of left that on the cutting room floor, but you can still see these scenes like in the movie, especially in like the second half, closer to the third act, where she kind of is giving off these creepy vibes. There's a YouTuber, Zach Cherry, who does these like super in-depth videos on slasher films, and he did a whole video about Scream 3 and like how they were supposed to introduce her as a second killer and such. I mean, it is cool. So I kind of do like when I watch this movie to just think about that. But other than that, it doesn't really have too much going for it, I don't think. It's a much more lighthearted approach to what was already kind of a playful franchise. And that, combined with the lack of any real blood in the kills, just kind of makes this movie seem a bit, I guess, childish in retrospect. it still has some great lines. It still has some of that classic meta humor that Scream is known for, but it's still, something's got to be in last place, right? And for me, it's Scream 3. All right, coming in fourth place is going to be Scream 2. Now, I know a lot of people like Scream 2, and again, I feel like I'm going to say this a lot during this video, but I don't hate it. Don't hate any of the movies on this list. But Scream 2, for me, is just, it's a fine sequel. It's a sequel to the original Scream, and it works. It works. But it doesn't, I'll talk about why the later entries on this list are as good as they are, but Scream 2 to me just felt like more of the same. You know, the original Scream was a parody on, it's not a parody, more of a deconstruction on the slasher genre and what slasher movies contained, and this one is a deconstruction on slasher sequels. And like I said, it works, but that's all it does. It just works. It's a fine sequel for me. I don't really care for any of the new characters in this film. I really just cared about Sidney and Gale and Dewey and Randy, and I didn't really care for Sidney's new boyfriend. I honestly didn't care for the killer reveals in this film. It just kind of fell flat for me. I didn't buy the fact that Billy's mom, the same woman who he said himself in the previous Scream, she like left his family after this affair was going on, and I don't really buy that she would be this motivated to go out and kill Sidney. It's not, I got to admit, I mean, when the killer reveal happened, the movie dipped a little bit in quality for me, and Mickey just seemed like a really, really wannabe Stu. Didn't work for me. But that being said, the movie does have some memorable kills. There's this memorable scene. I'm pretty bad with a lot of these people's names because I haven't seen most of these movies in a little bit. I saw them like in the past couple months, but I tend to forget like the victims' names, most of them. But the sorority girl in the house, that was a fun little kill in that first confrontation, at least on the phone, between Sidney and Ghostface. There's a cool set piece like in the theater when Ghostface is like taunting Sidney. There is a lot to like about this film, but to me there's just not enough to love. And like I said, the killer reveal, which I mean is almost the core of a Scream movie, right? Just fell flat for me. Like Scream 3 though, there's still memorable lines, there's still memorable quotes. I loved Randy's whole speech on the rules of a horror sequel. It's gotta be bigger, it's gotta be bolder, more set pieces, gorier blood. And it does live up to that. Like I said, a couple memorable scenes. But just, I mean, talking about it and thinking about it now, it's really just a fine sequel. Nothing more. I really, Scream 2 and Scream 3 on this list, I could swap. It depends on my mood. But again, I don't hate it. Just fourth place.
Hello?
What's your favorite scary movie?
All right, number 3 is Scream 5, or 5 Cream, or just Scream, or whatever you want to call it. I like to call it 5 Cream. Now this movie, again, spoilers, so just, well, you can skip this one if you want, but just spoilers. Scream 5 was a surprise for me. I didn't really expect to like it as much as I did, but the more I thought about it leaving the theater, the more kind of realistic my thoughts became, and I'm like, okay, well, this movie's just all right. Scream 5 is like, it plays out like a love letter to the original Scream, for better or for worse. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that works. A lot of the humor landed for me. There's a ton of callbacks to the original, and with that many callbacks, with that much nostalgia, some of it worked for me, some of it didn't. One of the most memorable scenes in the movie for me was when, look, I'm already forgetting her name, but the chick like on the couch watching the original Stab, and that scene where Randy's character is watching Halloween and telling Laurie, no, Laurie, look behind you, watch out, look behind you. And while that scene is going on, actual Ghostface is behind the chick, creeping up on her while she's repeating Randy's lines. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, I sound like a lunatic. But that scene was really good. And there are scenes like that in the film that worked. There's just a lot that kind of didn't work for me. Like, I don't really think Stu's house needed to be in the film. That just felt like an unnecessary callback. But this isn't a review of the movie, so I won't go into too much detail, but just to explain why I have it ranked where I am, it's kind of middle of the road for me. It's a love letter to the original Scream. In some aspects, it does feel like a play-by-play of the original Scream in certain scenes. It does just enough to justify its own existence, but that's kind of about it. It's obviously the best looking of the franchise. I mean, obviously. And Ghostface is pretty brutal in this film. Some of the kills here are some of my favorite in the entire franchise. Dewey's death, I mean, I kind of saw coming, but still, you know, I did appreciate the care given to him, I guess, leading up to his death in the movie. In fact, the film really makes you care about the new characters more, not more than the old ones, obviously, but it gives you enough time to care about the new characters before bringing back the legacy characters. And I think that that's what I really appreciated about this movie. It felt like fan service, it felt like nostalgia. However, I wish it did more to separate itself from the original Scream, I guess, like the next movie on this list.
It says I'm not outside. I'm right beside you.
Which is Scream 4, or I guess officially known as Screamorum. Scream 4, it has no right like being as good as it is. You have the original trilogy, and then what, like 10 years later, let's make a new Scream. Let's make a new Scream movie. That's a recipe for disaster. But Scream 4 was pretty good. I really loved. I guess let me get the one thing I hate about Scream 4 out of the way. I do not like the way it was shot. I do not like this halation, this almost like misty diffusion-like look on a lot of the outdoor scenes. It was really distracting. But other than that, the movie itself is really good. It has probably, I gotta think between this and Scream 5 or 5 Cream, but Scream 4 has my favorite set of like new characters. Kirby is awesome. Jill I liked as the killer. I think the killer reveal in this movie was really good. I mean, just someone who just wants to get famous off of a family member's tragedy. I mean, come on, tell me that's not like, it's kind of like the same energy as like when you go wake up at 8, whatever, go clock into work, and you just fucking the whole time thinking like, dude, there's some 12-year-old kid on TikTok making like $1 million a month, and I'm here clocking into work every day. Like, it's kind of the same energy as that, but I appreciated her. I liked her as the killer. Her accomplice, not too much. I mean, he just was kind of like disposable. But I did like Jill as a killer, and I did like the third act. I liked Scream 4 because I liked the opening, first of all, a lot. The opening was awesome. It threw me for a loop the first time I watched it. But I like that this movie, like, it really stands on its own 2 legs. And that's something that I wouldn't have expected from a Scream sequel, especially the 4th Scream movie, or 4th any slasher movie. It does good. And like I said, I like the killer reveals. I just realized I didn't even touch on the killer reveals for Scream 5. But I'll say it was okay. It was satisfying. I gotta think about it more, probably watch it a couple more times, but it was okay. I mean, not the best, not the worst. Okay. Kind of the whole movie itself, middle of the road. But back to Scream 4, the sequel really succeeded for me in a lot of aspects. I loved how, like, extensive the Stab franchise had grown at this point, like making fun of franchises like Saw that just run on forever and ever and get mindless and gory and this and that. I love the reference. It was a reference to like Jason X, or they talked about a Stab movie where they went to space, and I'm like, that's Jason X. Or is that Scream 5? Now I'm getting my Screams mixed up. But Scream 4 did a lot right, in my mind.
But us, we're gonna carry on and plan the sequel, because let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.
But number 1, the only, was there ever any doubt that this would be number 1 on the list? Obviously, it's the original Scream. I love this movie. It ages like fine-ass wine. I mean, it's the only movie I own, like, on 4K, Steelbook, actually. Don't want to, try not to catch the light. And I hope it's even focusing. The monitor on my camera is not the biggest, and my eyes kind of suck. But, I mean, this movie is amazing. It, like I said, ages like fine wine. Every time I watch it, it just gets better and better. The sequels continue, for the most part, what Scream accomplished, but they're sequels. You know, the original obviously did it first. And it's deconstruction of slasher conventions. It's humorous tone, but it's still a horror slasher movie. There are still genuine moments of tension, which I honestly can't say about the majority of scenes in any of the sequels. I mean, the original Scream had genuine moments of tension. It really had you thinking, dude, is Billy the killer? No, he can't be. He's got to be. It was great. I mean, it's incredible. Sidney Prescott is an awesome protagonist, and she's great in all the other movies too. I do have to put that out there. I really appreciate that the Scream franchise as a whole chooses to focus on the same lead protagonist. I mean, a lot of horror slasher movies like swap out the protagonist every 1 or 2 movies. So I really, really liked that Sidney was the focus in all 5 movies. But of course, she had to start somewhere, and that's the original Scream. I guess I could sit here and talk forever about it, but there's just so much to love about. I mean, if you're a horror fan, I've never met a horror fan who doesn't like Scream. It's an amazing movie. Wes Craven struck gold with this film, and I think he knew it. The killer reveal. At this point in Scream movies, we obviously expect 2 killers at the least. But I mean, who saw that coming? Or originally, the first time you watched Scream, did you really expect there to be 2 killers? Like when you went in blind and just the first time you watched it, did you really? I mean, 2 killers is something that nobody was like primed for back in the day. No one expected that. And like I said, how in Scream 2, when the killers were revealed, the movie kind of dips a little bit in quality. As soon as the killers are revealed in this movie, it skyrockets. I mean, it was already up high, but it skyrockets. Matthew Lillard as Stu is incredible. He is my favorite actor to ever take on the role of Ghostface. Him and Billy, but Stu is my favorite. He is, God, he's so memorable. He's quotable, he's memorable. The little tongue, little thing that he does, like, hilarious. The movie is paced perfectly well too, whereas in some other sequels the pacing kind of dips a little bit, but there's not really enough good that I can say about Scream. It's a fantastic film. It is, I'm going to keep watching it for years to come, and I'm sure it'll get better and better every time I watch it. Yeah, I don't think there was ever any doubt that the original Scream would be top on my list. All right, and that is my ranking of the Scream franchise, all 5 movies, worst to best. Again, I find enjoyment in every single one of these movies, just on varying degrees, obviously. I try to keep this a little bit brief because I have a really terrible habit of just when I do like ranking videos or top 10 videos and this and that, I just talk and talk and talk about each one, and I'm like, this isn't a review. Just shut up. So I'm gonna end it here, before I ramble and dive back into the top 5 again and just give a whole new different perspective on each 5 movies. But Scream is a solid franchise. As far as modern horror slasher franchises go, great, all great. I think it's definitely one of the more successful and enjoyable ones. And yeah, that's my ranking, guys. Appreciate you watching, and as always, appreciate you guys watching, checking the video out. Drop a like if you enjoyed it, drop a dislike if you didn't, or if you disagree with my ranking or whatever. Comment with your own ranking if you want. Subscribe if you enjoy what I do. And until next time, guys, peace out. Take care of yourselves. Have a good one.